Welcome everybody to OnPodcast, the On Microsoft podcast, where we talk about Microsoft stuff on a podcast. I'm your co-host today. My name is Kareem Anderson. I'm joined by the world's greatest co-host.
Riff Bacchus.
Yeah, and we have tons of Microsoft stuff to talk about once again today. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a pod, I guess.
Not an Apple podcast, not just yet.
I mean, we will talk about them for a little bit because hey, it is they did have a big developers conference.
All right, but what we're here to talk about is Windows, Xbox, insider builds, Microsoft stores, virtual desktops, the big Xbox and Bethesda event, and so much more.
Yeah, we'll give you just a quick rundown just so you know where to kind of look at in the timeline. And if you want to jump to something beforehand, we'll start off with everything that we do and do not know about the Windows 10 slash possibly 11 event. We'll just call it the June 24th event. We don't really know what to expect from this, but I wrote a post about it. I have some opinions. I have some actual facts too about what we do know about it. So we'll cover that off the bat at the top.
And then we'll move over to talk about Xbox and some big announcements in regards to Xbox Cloud Gaming and new first party games coming to Xbox Game Pass.
Yeah, I mean, it's E3 starting midnight tonight, I believe, or early tomorrow morning. So
Yep.
we expect a lot of gaming news, not just from Microsoft, but from the industry. So gamers, get ready.
And of course, the Xbox and Bethesda E3 event is just probably an hour and a half after our podcast. So we moved our time up to give you some time to watch that after you watch us.
Exactly. And this happens to be the podcast that is going to be 3 hours long. So we're going to run into it anyway. I'm just
uh,
kidding. We also are going to be talking about FaceTime on Windows 10. Again, as we mentioned, Apple had its developers conference earlier this week, and they had unveiled FaceTime coming to Android and Windows, sort of. We'll get into it.
And then we also have some news about Microsoft pausing. They didn't specifically say it this way, but I'm saying it this way. They paused their big Windows Insider builds, and they're just testing the servicing pipeline. So if you guys are insiders and you're not seeing new builds, we'll have our own theories as to why this is happening.
Well, I mean, we are officials from Microsoft, so you could take us at our word. These are facts. We're
Yeah.
speaking on behalf of Microsoft.
And Fast Recap is back, and we have a couple of things to speed through in Fast Recap. Microsoft stores are reopening, kind of, sort of, not really. They're called Microsoft Experience Centers now, in quotes. And there's also a rebrand happening for Windows Virtual Desktop and some new updates for Teams, which might be useful.
Yeah. And then we have our like favorite section, which is the end of the podcast, where he gets to talk about all the cool things he's reviewing. But beyond that, we'll also be talking about again, we'll be speculating on the Bethesda event, so you can immediately go back to the comments on this video and say, "Hey, you guys are all wrong."
And then it's Flight Simulator also supposed to be talked about at that event, right?
Correct. I mean, there's gonna be all kinds of things. I think you were reading the tea leaves for the flight simulators specifically, but
Yeah.
again, it's gonna be a whole gaming event, and they have a lot to talk about. Hopefully, we'll see some demos and maybe use some concept art from some of the upcoming titles from some of the studios they've purchased. I mean, we're all waiting for some exclusives. So again, we'll get into that later on. With that all being said, we should start.
Yeah, get us into Windows 11 and everything you know and everything Satya just told you before we started this call.
Yeah, he mentioned to me that Windows 11 is official, and that it will be for free, and that it
uh,
will have everything we've always wanted. No,
you heard it here first, folks.
and if I'm wrong about anything, tweet Sasha. He'll take the blame for it. No, in all actuality, I wrote a piece about the Windows event that's scheduled for June 24th, 2021, is a mystery, is as much a mystery as it is a necessity. And I said that because we've all kind of been waiting for Windows to evolve, so to speak. It did have a rather significantly from Windows 7 to 8 to 10. But we've been sitting on 10 for going on close to 6 years now, and not much has changed. Even insiders have seen the development pace kind of drop off as far as features, UI changes, things like that. And that's not to say that the Windows team isn't working on all of the underpinnings of the operating system, making it more secure, making it faster. I wouldn't say lighter, but at least faster in some regards, adding stuff. We'll get into the Windows, the Linux subsystem being added into Windows. So they are doing some things that aren't as front facing as we'd like them to be, but they're hard at work. But I think at this point we're going to start to need to see some front facing things done, especially in the light of, and this is how I framed it in my piece, Big Sur showing up.
Yep.
A lot of the things that they showed in the most recent version of macOS, which should be coming out later this fall, and as Chromebooks and Chrome OS evolve and start nipping at the bud of Windows 10. I go into some specifics about the market share and how it's really drastically changed. I know that a lot of us have sat on this, these Windows fans have sat on this 80%, almost 90% market share, saying that Microsoft is Windows is run on most of the world's computers. Well, if you've taken a look at it recently, it's actually really started to slip. We're seeing
Yep.
that it's it's below 80%. It's closer to high 60s, low 70s at this point, with Apple taking a more significant position, and even Chrome OS. Now, again,
That's all
worldwide,
because of the pandemic. The pandemic has sort of driven people away from Windows because they're using Chromebooks and iPads and other kinds of devices in combination with of stuff for, as well as for business as well as schools. So Microsoft is slipping a bit and losing some of the market per se.
yeah, I mean, it's more. I mean, and again, it's not like we're falling off a cliff here,
It's not
but as
huge,
far
but it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
but as the numbers are reflecting, where I believe Microsoft in worldwide is sitting at just over 70%, just a
Yep.
little bit over. And Apple has reached its highest, I believe, at 15% worldwide. And Chrome OS is at 2.29%. So, I mean, it's moved over from its, I believe it used to be 0.67 or something like that for a
Would be
while.
like nothing.
Yeah. But in North America, more specifically, and this is where it starts to look a little more dire for Windows, is that um, 62.7%. That's what Windows is at. So it's just above the 50% mark. Mac OS accounts for 25%, which is larger than I had anticipated. And Chrome OS, as we had mentioned, in education, take a huge leap, is at 6.43%. Again, it's not in danger of losing its majority share, but I mean, it is drastically reduced. And this goes back to what we're saying about Windows. This is a Windows event. I believe that Microsoft has finally realized, at least over the last 5 years, as it's focused on cloud, that Windows 10 is a springboard for all of the things that it wants to do in the cloud still. As quickly as it would like to just focus on cloud computing, where the margins are much easier to kind of measure and maintain. At least they know, or it seems that Satya and Panos have realized that if we make Windows 10 enjoyable, nice to use, intuitive, maybe easy on the eyes, we can get more people using even more of our service stack.
So
So, go ahead.
So some of that stuff that you said, nice to use and easy on the eyes, does that mean that we get everything that we've seen in Windows 10X? Because a lot of people here are sitting and they're wondering, it's Windows 11. What is it? What is it going to be new? Personally, judging from all the rumors we heard from Zach and Thoreau and all the other Microsoft insiders, it seems like Windows 11 is going to bring that Sun Valley. Sun Valley is not the name of the update. A lot of people think it's going to be called the Sun Valley update, but Sun Valley, I think, and I don't know what you think, but I think Sun Valley has always been referring to the visual redesign of Windows itself. So it's going to bring those Sun Valley elements like rounded corners and new fonts and redesigned start menu and action center. And like you're saying, all of these things do matter at the end of the day because macOS, what was it? Big Sur and Chrome OS, they've all gotten beautiful changes that make people like using this thing. And Windows 10 has been sitting in the same state for like the last 2 years or so.
If not longer, yeah.
Yeah.
Just so we can help our audience kind of understand, here's what we know. We know that Windows 10X has been canceled. So
Yeah.
all of the leaks and ISOs that people have been using, all of that new
It's
features and
dead.
functionality is dead. Microsoft has officially said that they would like to bring over some of those experiences. They didn't specify which ones. We're assuming that they're talking about the floating taskbar, the new action center, the new start menu, where I believe they're gonna deprecate live tiles and just go to regular standard icons with no flashing and information or anything like that. Some overlays, and as you mentioned, rounded corners. That's what we're assuming they're going to bring over, since they said they're going to bring over those quote unquote experiences.
And then in the
Um,
blog post, they said into other areas of Windows. They did not say Windows 10. They said other area of Windows. And then that's why I'm saying this is Windows 11 that they're talking about.
well, this goes back to clearing up what we do and don't know. We don't know if they're going to change the name. We all are assuming that Windows 11. This is partly based on, again, tea leaf reading. So they sent us a GIF for the invite that
Yeah.
has the Windows logo, but the shadow is missing the crossbar, which makes it look like a Windows. Instead, it looks like an 11. So a lot of people are reading into that. It seems like a natural progression to go from 10 to 11. But as I'd mentioned with our editor in chief, that for it to be an 11, it has to be a rather significant change. We went from Windows 8, we skipped 9 altogether and went to 10, and it was a drastic rehashing of the UI. We got rid of that full touch start menu that
Yep.
would eventually go on the desktop. We overhauled the UI on Internet Explorer. Eventually came up with Edge. We got rid of the terms bar. We got rid of a lot of stuff in the way that Windows 8 worked. So if we're going to be going to 11, I'm assuming we're going to be doing a lot more changes than just shuffling some of the UI for the system. The other thing that we don't know um, is basically what else is going to change. And this, what we don't know kind of leads into the end of my piece about what we're hoping to see, what we're expecting to see, and what we would like to see. And some of that stuff I get into just the brief things such as um, cloud syncing. This is part I think is very important. You and I kind of went over this,
Yep.
discussing this offline, about not only is it going to be a good Chrome OS competitor, not just by pricing, but by functionality. If you're able to start up a new Windows PC, which you used to be able to, I believe in 8, was it?
Yeah,
Or
you
the
used to be
beginning of
able to
10?
sync your live tiles, the placement of the live tiles, all your settings, and all of your themes. And now they removed that for all those enterprise folks, like you were saying offline, to make their jobs more fun.
Yeah, I feel like they did it to justify their position. Like, oh, I'm an admin guy, so I have to take this computer and set it up. So pay me, X amount of dollars. When it would have been just easier to say, do you have the company login? Log it in, and all your stuff is right then and there. We don't need this IT guy to kind of oversee the setup of your device. But I do believe that's very important going forward for Microsoft, is if they can bring over the syncing functionalities that they've displayed already, that they have built into Windows 10, that they are pushing with Edge ever so incrementally. Each time you get a new update, there's new seeking functions. You get your
Yep.
collections, you get passwords, you get autofill, and all that stuff is all being brought over through the cloud. So they've proven that they can do it. I think if they can bring that over to Windows 10, and you can just start up a new machine, or you can just start up account settings. That's another thing they need to revise, is how easy and intuitive account settings needs to be in Windows 10. You should be able to have your mom, your friend, say your friend's visiting you, didn't want to bring his computer, needs to use yours for a quick second. He can bring in his Microsoft account ID,
Yep.
type it in real quick, and his whole setup comes up.
Yep.
Like you mentioned, maybe they don't have all the apps because you guys don't share the same apps, but he'll at least have app icons that he can go re-download those for, and make it easy for him. And I believe that'll be one huge step in competing with Chrome OS without having to come up with Windows 10X or try and sell new hardware, so to speak.
This is something that Apple has done so great with iPad OS too, and even iOS. You could just hold up your phone and then scan the code, and everything instantly goes over your home screen, your apps, your app placement, your settings, your contacts, your photos, everything. This is something that Microsoft needs to get right in Windows 11.
Very much agree. The other thing I mentioned was, again, account settings, making that intuitive right up in the front. So, I mean, right now you kind of have to you have to dig into
All right.
your settings menus in order to find it. I also believe if they can start working on that, they can start pushing two-factor authentication, which would help them secure more data and
All
just get
right.
that as a kind of a a front of thought for everybody who's a Windows user, makes their jobs a little bit easier. So it's a twofold approach, and I believe if they can nail those two things with, maybe some of this new theming that we're talking about, as far as making sure that old menus in Windows 10 match the same theming. You don't have to necessarily get rid of the control panel. I would like them to just bring all that stuff over to the Windows settings. But if you're going to keep it, before, because businesses have built in APIs and hooks into that for the last 35 years. If you can't get rid of it, at least make sure that the DPI, like the icons in that and the font in that, all match the regular system. Because right now you go into it and you have a pixelated menu that looks super outdated.
Yeah.
If it can look more modern and follow the theming, so that we have the dark file system. I don't see why the old control panel, can't have that same dark system. So those two things I think would go huge in changing Windows 10 and its mind share as of right now. There's some other things. I'm sure you have some smaller
Yep.
things that you'd be like, hey, if they could add, Zach says, round everything. That'd be pretty nice too. Animations, drop shadows, the way that you go in and out of applications. Those are all things that need to be addressed as well. But Microsoft account settings and syncing your account settings. I think if they can nail those two down by June 24th, we would have a really nice system on our hands.
Well said. I think we spent like 19 minutes going on about everything we want to see in Windows 11. But let's move on to Xbox now, because I think it was on Friday, Microsoft had a big Xbox news drop where they talked about what's coming next for Xbox Cloud Gaming and what's next for Xbox Game Pass. Well, on the cloud gaming front, Microsoft is going to new places. Satya Nadella and Phil Spencer, they had a little video and they talked about the future of Xbox and gaming. And again, this is before the E3 expose that's coming up in an hour or so. So this was pre-taped and everything was in advance, but maybe they'll talk about this at E3 as well. But there are a couple of things that you need to know about for Xbox Game Pass and Xbox Cloud Gaming. The first of which is very huge, is that they're working with TV manufacturers to bring a native cloud gaming app into your TV. So now you could be able to play Game Pass without actually having to buy an Android phone or buy a tablet or even go on Windows and play on Windows. That is one thing. And then they also confirmed that they're working on streaming sticks and dedicated hardware from Microsoft, which will let you play Xbox Cloud Gaming, which is huge because that has been rumored for some time now, I think.
Yeah,
You're the one that was saying it, I think.
yeah. We said this, and I don't know. Maybe you can go back to one of our first podcasts. You also need to wear glasses because the cameras are horrible. But if you go back to one of our earlier podcasts, we talked about the possibility of Microsoft putting its gaming, since it's cloud streaming everywhere. And the stick idea is based off of something Chrome has already done, established. They have their Chromecast, and using Chromecast on your device makes Stadia even that much more impressive. You can take your Stadia from your Android tablet, your Android phone, and even from your Windows laptop onto the bigger screen. So imagine, you're going on a family trip, which I will be going in a few weeks, and you don't want to bring your Xbox Series X because you like where it's placed. You don't want to damage it. But you bring the streaming stick plugged into the back of your family member's TV,
Yep.
friend's TV, wherever you're vacationing, Airbnb, and you've got, however many games that they have on Game Pass at your disposal, depending on the broadband. All you have to do is bring a controller. So I believe this will be huge, especially, again, if they can get this out with the limited production for Xbox Series X and people are thirsty for new Xbox experiences. This could be, I think gangbusters for them. You go into a Best Buy, say, hey, do you have a Series X? No, we don't, but we have
Nope.
this $3, $40
Yep.
streaming stick, $6,
Yep.
whatever it is. And you can start playing the latest Xbox games, especially exclusives that are coming to the platform, I believe, between now and the fall. I think it's a win-win, depending on how soon they can get this out. I'm really looking forward to this.
And that's the hardware side, but there are some changes coming to the software side as well. When I reviewed Game Pass on my Windows 10 PC, not Game Pass, sorry, cloud streaming on my PC, one thing I complained about was the loading times. And part of that had to do with the fact that Microsoft is still using Xbox One S consoles for the servers, which connect connect you to cloud gaming. Well, that's finally changing. They confirmed that they're now in the almost done with the process of moving over the servers from Xbox One S consoles to Series X and Series S consoles. It's a mouthful to make sure
Yeah.
that the loading times will improve. That is one huge change. And then they're also graduating cloud gaming from the browser in the next few weeks. They didn't say when, but it's moving up and it'll no longer be in beta. And everyone will be able to play cloud gaming on their PCs, on their iPhones, on any device practically, even on their fridge or even on their smartwatch, like I wrote about the other day.
Yeah, it's we again a few months back have been talking about the process of changing out the blade servers for Xbox Series X and S, and again because it's a more powerful console.
Right.
With these running the servers, we should be able to see hopefully ideally reduce the latency. I know that I particularly am not great at first-person shooters. I know Paul Thurrott is a huge first-person shooter, and millions upon millions of Xbox gamers are. And I know some people have complained about the latency when it comes to first-person shooters and XCloud. It's not a one for one. It's not immediate. There's a bit of lag, and again, it's dependent on your own broadband. But I also believe it's just the server capacity and the way that they're kind of pushing the bits. Hopefully, this, like you said, will help improve that. And also being able to, like me, I play,
Yep.
real-time strategy games, things like that. This would just make the fidelity even better for those kind of games. Loading screens a little quicker if there are any for some of them. So all of this software update stuff is really good. I also want to go back really quickly and talk about the TVs because I had mentioned the streaming sticks, which again, I'm a fan of hardware. You're a fan of hardware, but I do also have a Samsung TV
Smart
downstairs,
TV. Yep.
smart TV, and ideally, I don't know if they'll be able to push this as an app for updates to current devices or more modern devices, TVs that have been bought in the last year or so, so that if and when you do update your TV, you will have that app available to you. I know that when Disney Plus first showed up, it was an update for my TV, so hopefully, you won't even have to go out and buy anything if you already have an Xbox One. Or an Xbox 360 compatible controller, something like that, you can just turn on your TV and be like, hey, I can start playing new Xbox games, the more recent and modern games on my TV starting whenever they decide to release this.
And then you're talking about streaming sticks and TVs, but Microsoft also talked about current generation hardware, and they said that they're planning to bring cloud gaming to Xbox consoles, which, as you've been saying for the last 5 months, makes sense because if you don't want to go and buy like $60 games or $120 games, you'll be able to enjoy cloud gaming on your console itself, which Sony has been doing with PlayStation Now for quite a while.
Yeah, I want to say like I'm not a huge Sony fan, but I got to give them the credit. They've been plugging away at this for at least the last 4 years or so, or something like that. Like they've established this. I want to say they were probably the first in the market to do this. So in that regard, Microsoft's playing catch up. I do believe that the Game Pass aspect of it is carrying would potentially carry Microsoft across the finish line though, faster than Sony's. I know that Sony's working on a similar sort of setup, but they did start doing the cloud streaming to the device long before Microsoft had, started discussing it.
And then hope I don't say her name wrong, but Liz Hamren, she kind of pulled a Panos Panay on us and teased some new Xbox consoles, which this is physical hardware, a new Xbox console. She said, we're already hard at work on new hardware and platforms, some of which won't come to light for years. So Series X and Series S are not the end. They're working on new hardware. And I just wonder how powerful it'll be because they already pushed the boundary with these current gen consoles.
You mean with the Xbox One?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm like, I don't necessarily think they've pushed the boundaries for the Series X or X yet because we haven't had a ton of games or experience. But what I'm interested in seeing and doing is how they mesh the worlds of the Duo in gaming. They just did the recent update that made it, they added more touch controls to that,
Right.
making it basically a Nintendo DS. So if they do have a Duo coming out, I believe at the end of September has been the rumor, a Duo 2, how they start to position that as not only just your productivity device, but now your gaming console, so to speak. If everything's going to be streamed from the cloud, and you don't necessarily need to have the most uh, bleeding edge technology on your in hand, you can just stream it from the cloud. That Duo now becomes a pretty impressive device, especially if you can just pair a controller to it as well. So maybe that's part of their roadmap in new devices is more compact devices, more thin clients that just look really cool and easily portable, easily playable. Hopefully in the future.
And that was about Xbox Cloud Gaming, but now we'll ship over to the Xbox Game Pass side. And there are a couple of notable stories on that front. The first one is that Microsoft is planning to expand its subscription service by releasing new first party exclusive games on Xbox Game Pass more regularly. They're saying that they want to release at least one new first party game into Xbox Game Pass every quarter. That includes role playing games, shooters, strategy, the whole shebang, the whole catalog. And then other than that, they're also working on new tiers, which should make Game Pass more accessible to more people, which is what you've been saying for months now. Like make it more cheap, make it easier for people to get access to it. And then the third and final story is that Microsoft is working with telecommunications company. Again, this is Sprint, AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon to create new offerings similar to Xbox All Access, which will allow more people to get an Xbox console and allow Game Pass subscriptions for a low monthly price.
Well, again, this all goes to their efforts to be the Netflix of gaming, and I
Yep,
keep saying
as
that.
you've been saying. Yep.
Yeah, the idea of quarterly publishings of games is mirroring what I believe Netflix is doing. Netflix, I think, came out at the beginning of this year. I want to say somewhere around February, uh, with a promo saying that they were going to release a new movie, 52 movies in the 52 weeks or whatever. So a new movie every week to kind of keep people engaged with the platform. They're also doing this new, I believe they have a horror series or something like that. It looks sort of like Goosebumps meets Stranger Things. But anyway, it's a three-part series, and each week they're going to release the sequel to it. So, this effort to keep content fresh, keep gamers engaged, and keep a steady schedule so people know what to expect from the platform. It doesn't feel stale. It isn't like, oh, I've played these games over and over. At some point, they're going to want to get to the, if they get their exclusives or if they get enough indie games that people want, marketing behind it, that will be, on the edge of your seat, wanting to, say like, hey, I just finished this last game from this publisher. They have a new game coming out this Friday. I want to play that. That's going to be the conversation versus like, oh, let's wait till the fall to see all the new titles. It'll be, uh, what's the name of the guy that does Death Standing or whatever? One of the Japanese
I
producers or whatever, when
I
they
don't
come out
even
with a new
know.
game. Yeah, it'll be like, again, it'll be a waiting period. Like, oh, I can't wait till Wednesday when they come out with their new game, or next month when they come out with their new game. So I believe that's what they're trying to do with that. To the second part of the story, which was the tiers.
Mhm.
Again, I believe, again, as you said, just making it more accessible, making sure that people can get it at each price point, because, at some point, when you want to move up, you could at least know that what the experience is like and say like, hey, if I had $5 more, I go to the next tier and get even more from this thing. As far as reach into the telecoms, that's always been kind of their downfall. And I say that by, saying rest in peace, Ken, the Ken phone. Last time they dealt with the carriers, or rest in peace, Windows Phone. Last time they dealt with the carriers. But if they can bundle the service with phones in general, like Android phones, and say like, you get the latest Pixel or the latest Samsung price Galaxies, you'll get 3 months of Xbox X Cloud gaming on your device with Xbox Game Pass. That's just another way to get things in there and get the marketing out and get people, get accessibility to the platform. And also with the devices. I myself am waiting for a credit version of getting a device. I would love to be able to just drop $600 and be like, give me all the top-notch stuff. But if I can convince my wife to say, hey, instead of $500, let's do $30 a month, I think she'd be able to digest that a little easier.
All right, so enough about Xbox. Now let's move on to back to Windows and look at FaceTime coming to Windows 10, but not in the way you think, right?
Yes, for all of you people who are eye rolling for the last 15 minutes, here's some fun stuff. Apple announced that they were bringing FaceTime to Android and Windows, and everyone cheered. And then they said, but
There's
this is
always
how
a
we're doing it.
but when it comes to Apple. There's always a but.
And this one's pretty huge. The way they're doing it is they're doing it just like any other um, conferencing technology out there. I believe they're using WebRTC to do this. They will now allow people who have iPhones, Macs, iPads, stuff like that, to send out a video sharing link essentially to let people who are on third-party platforms like Windows and Android join in on them. So if your mom, your sister, your brother, father, anybody who has an iPhone wants to FaceTime you and they haven't been able to because you were a green bubble and ostracized from the family, they can now send you a link that you can click into and you can join the call. You yourself cannot create these. You can't invite people from Windows PC or from an Android phone. You can't send them out, but you can receive them. So if it's something important like planning the family gathering or family reunion and they need you in on the call, they can send out a link to you. So it's just one step closer to having FaceTime on devices other than Apple's. And the way they're doing it is, again, using WebRTC means that you'll be able to do it through the browser only. So
I
you won't
hope
have a dedicated app.
I hope that they do this with iMessage as well, because it would be really awesome to be able to just pull up Edge and then go in and then respond to your messages. This is one step closer to that. But I do have a note. I think Zach and a lot of us Windows people were laughing when the keynote happened because they picked the ugliest computer and the most shittiest Android phone to show off this feature in action. It's just Apple being Apple.
It is, and I'm not going to defend that, but it also is indicative of what the average Android and Windows consumer sees as a screen. Again, we
Right.
love the top-notch, high-end Galaxy stuff, but there is a whole submarket of, 300 and below, $300 and below
Yep.
Android phones that look just like the one they picked. Same thing for Windows PCs. If you haven't updated from Internet Explorer, you'll see that sort of, a Chrome heavy browser version. So as much as it is them poking fun at us and saying like, hey, your design is horrible, it is sort of reality for a lot of people,
and
unfortunately.
they, and
Hopefully,
they and they also made sure to use Chrome and not Edge because hey, you can't glorify Microsoft's new web browser.
well, again, this goes to what people are using,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Hopefully, with this new Windows 10/11 update, they can throw out those old cue cards and at least modernize them, or we can at least say, hey, that's entirely wrong. But as of right now, they're sort of right. It's sad.
Speaking of Windows 10 and 11, I'm back with the segues. I think it's been a while since
I
I
know.
had
He's like,
one. Now we're moving on to talking about Microsoft's Windows Insider program. And if you're a Windows Insider, you might have been hoping that you would get some Windows 10X. No, see, I said Windows 10X. Windows 11 elements in your builds, but
he's
no.
still grieving, everybody. He's still grieving. Let him go through the process.
I'm crying. These are tears for Windows 10X. Same tears that I
Yeah.
shed for Windows Phone
And Zune
and
and
Zoom
Groove.
and Microsoft Band and every other Microsoft product that
He's
they
just
killed.
constantly crying.
But anyway, back to the news. There won't be any major Windows Insider builds for the next couple weeks. They didn't explicitly say that, but what Microsoft said is they're servicing the current build by testing their servicing pipeline. So that means you're only going to get small cumulative updates for the next few weeks. And they didn't explain why or how or give us any other explanation other than that and the servicing pipeline thing. But you know what I think it is? I think they're putting a pause on stuff so they could work on whatever Windows 11 is behind the scene. Then after the June 24th event, just unleash it all on us at once. Everything that we've been waiting for.
Um,
Am I
that's a very
crazy? Am I crazy?
no, you're not crazy, but you're very optimistic. I believe that listening to Windows Central's podcast, I believe Friday or whatnot, they had mentioned something similar to that, saying that most of the coding for this has been
Is there?
done,
Yeah.
is there. So maybe after this event and the pipeline, I believe they started releasing updates to the pipeline last week and the week
Yep.
before. So they're trying to um, get the pipes working for us to start seeing more features. So again, in theory, This should be after June 24th. We should start seeing some of those Sun Valley bits more so coming to Windows Insider. We've been waiting for, over a year and a half now since we've been hearing about Sun Valley to be like, give it to us, let's see it. Maybe they've just been holding back because they want, like you said, marketing, huge splash, get a lot of people
Yep.
talking. Also, limit the amount of time they can get complaints for stuff, and just release it to us. That's a euphemistic way of saying it. From what I was, if I were being a pessimist, I'd be like, most of the coding's done, but most of the stuff that we visually want to see isn't done. What we're going to see at this event will probably be a ton of demos, kind of like we did when we saw sets,
Yep.
the people's app, all those good things that we were like, this looks really cool. I believe we're going to see a lot of those demos, and they may give us, uh, hopefully maybe the account seeking stuff, the stuff that isn't as glamorous but is super fundamental to the way that the UX will start going from now on. Maybe show us, some more settings in the control settings, or maybe this just give us a lot of the API stuff for the store that they've been talking about. I know we kind of glossed over all of the things we want to see, but Satya made a big point saying that this new update for whatever version of Windows this is will be big for developers, and not just Windows developers, but developers in general. They want to make this a platform for them. So we might
Right.
start seeing the store stuff come into play. Again, things that we don't necessarily play with every day, but those might be the more concrete things versus some of the demos of all the cool rounded corner stuff that we would like to see.
So are we just gonna get like a flashy video that shows everything that's fancy, and then when it comes to downloading it, it's just gonna be disappointing? I think that Walking Cat a couple of days ago, he had a tweet where he was like, marketing videos for Windows 11 with smiley face and heart emojis, and then actual Windows 11 stuff with frowny face and sad face. I think I'll look
Yeah.
for the tweet and have it up on the show for you. But even this leaker is expecting to be disappointed.
And I say that not as a negative to them. I just think again, it's been a long process, and if for what they're saying that they're trying to do, and I believe this is again a multi-year process. Unfortunately, this won't be like the big server one where it's like,
Right
Apple's been
away.
working up for this for a decade, and they finally just gave us everything all at once. What Microsoft tends to do is say, here's like a third of it, and this will be a multi-year process. And by the time we get to where they, visioned it, it's already been 6 years later, and things have already changed. That's sadly the development of UWP, Metro
Yep.
UI, stuff like that. They give us a third of it, saying like, here's all the cool stuff we can do and what it will look like. And they'll eventually get to it. It'll take them 5, 6 years, but by the time we get to 6 years down the line, we're like, dude, this is old. Like, I'm glad you guys finished it. But if you had finished it 6 years ago, it would have been brand new and we could have moved on. But now we were waiting to see new stuff. So again, I don't want to be a pessimist, but I do have a feeling we're going to see at least a lot of demos before we start seeing any actual stuff we get our hands on after June 24th.
And now it's time for a fast recap. And I'm
All
putting the
right.
well. How much time do you think we should put on the clock today?
Let's see what we got. Experience at that. I would say we'll split the baby and do 5 minutes.
All right.
Four and a
Well,
half, 5 minutes. Yeah.
5 minutes on the clock, and I'll let you kick things off with the Experience Center's reopening for Microsoft.
Microsoft stores are back, baby. Go get everything you need right now. No, I wish I could say that. The in-person retail experience is sort of back. Microsoft, before the pandemic, shut down all of their in-mall stores, in-present stores. Most of them were in North America. There were a few throughout the rest of the world. They were all shut down. And during the pandemic, they also liquidated a lot of them. They wrote off a big taxing, I believe, in their
Yep.
investment callings around July-ish. So basically, they just liquidated everything that was in the store, sold it all, never reopened it again. They did have what they call Microsoft Experience Centers still remaining. I believe there's three: one in Sydney, Australia, one in London, and one
One in New
in
York.
New York in the U.S. Yeah, and what these things are just bigger versions of their store presence. They're mainly used for business customers. They invite businesses to come in, test out devices, buy in bulk, things like that. And you can also host things there too. So if you're a business and you need to have an area to host an event using Microsoft things to showcase it, you can book it out. So they're reopening those. That's the extent of this story. So we're not going to be seeing Microsoft retail stores for you and I to go into, but if you happen to be in New York, you can probably wander into one of these giant Microsoft stores, again, these are catered towards more businesses, but they will have devices in there, and you can probably buy one or two things from there as well. But there are three, only three: Sydney, Australia, London, and New York. So that's the extent of that story.
And then the second story is about Windows Virtual Desktop becoming Azure Virtual Desktop. People saw this and they freaked out, and they're like, Windows is dead. But it's just Microsoft better positioning its marketing for people who use Azure stuff. It's being rebranded to Azure Virtual Desktop, and it reflects Microsoft's broader vision for its cloud virtual desktop infrastructure, which is getting new capabilities and pricing options for remote app streaming tailored for the hybrid workforce. So no, don't panic. Windows is not dead. It's just a minor rebrand to get up to speed with Microsoft's vision for Azure.
I feel like people say Windows is dead just as much as they say this is the year of Linux. And I don't know if those just happen to coincide or if those are the same people. The next story is Microsoft Teams adds options to create a planner and to-do tasks from the chat or channels post. So we're getting even more Teams features added, or more, yeah, more things added into Teams. More specifically, I think this is spotted by Microsoft MVP named Adam Deltinger. Probably butchered that horribly, but Adam. In the desktop version of Teams. Prior to the update, the users had to copy and paste the messages manually in order to create Microsoft To Do or Planner tasks. This new functionality has been designed to let users identify tasks that arise naturally in conversations and quickly let them task them directly from the chat or channel in the team. So it's very similar if you have an Android device. I believe they do this in messages where you things are mentioned in conversation that seem time sensitive, and they'll let you add a sleeper timer to or schedule it as an event to do later on. So just expect to start seeing that crop up in your conversations. If it were to say, hey, did you get the latest screenshot from this? And like, I haven't gotten it, but give me a second. If you say give me a second, it'll probably pop up with a timer or some kind of to do to follow up on that message. I think
and
they do it in Outlook a lot.
and that's enough for fast recap. I think we made it with a little bit extra, but
I
that's
think we did
fine.
about 35 seconds. Yeah.
That's
Drink,
fine.
everybody. Celebrate.
Now it's time for a week ahead, which is my favorite segment. And right after we finish talking here, Microsoft has its big Xbox and Bethesda E3 event. And what do you think is in store for this event? I know they had a lot last year at E3. Well, E3 was canceled last year, but it was just a virtual thing. And they talked about Halo Infinite and Forza, and they had all these wonderful trailers, but a lot of these games never came to be. So will we finally get more solid details about like things like Halo Infinite and the new Forza game and stuff like that?
To be honest with you, I don't think so. I think this will be a Bethesda exclusive. I do believe that they'll probably save Halo Infinite talk until probably the end of summer, when they have nailed down probably the last bits of designing for it, or whatever marketing they need to do for it. Um, I'm sure they're going to want to showcase Halo Infinite by itself,
All right.
with, or at least with as little competing news around it, because it's one of their big exclusives. I believe what they're going to do is tell us about the structuring of Bethesda going forward. That includes exclusives, what's going to happen to current titles on the platform and on other platforms, possibly the inclusion of all of their games into the Game Pass library, or most of the games, and probably some new concepts of games that Bethesda will be working on that they probably hope to plan to release in the next 3 to 5 years. If I had to guess, that's mostly, and I believe, as much as we're thinking that this is going to be a huge, long event, I mean, this is, again, E3-ish, so they might have more information about other things coming out. I see this as a 30 to 45-minute event where it's just Bethesda information only.
I think we might finally get Microsoft Flight Simulator on consoles, Series X and Series S. That's a definite because last night, today is Saturday, and Microsoft had a webpage up for the Xbox experience on Friday night, and people were clicking it, and then some guy like he turned up the contrast, and then in the background of the web page was Microsoft Flight Simulator. So for sure, I'm certain that they will have Microsoft Flight Simulator coming to Xbox at this event. But I do wonder if it's coming to Xbox One or if it will be exclusive to Series X and Series S, because it is a very demanding game. Maybe the original Xbox console might not be able to keep up with it.
Yeah, if I had to guess, it'll probably be an Xbox. Oh, also, I wanted to note, I feel like that person who you said turned up the contrast is just you. I feel like you were one of
No,
maybe
Tom
20.
Warren also tweeted about it, so there's that. I'm not a loony. I'm
Okay.
not crazy.
No, Flight Simulators seems like a super fun game. It has huge fans and it's visually stunning. So, with that all being said, I do believe it'll probably be an Xbox Series X and S exclusive, just like you said, because it's super demanding. It's a super huge game, and I know that the original Xbox One consoles, most of them maxed out at 500 gigs, and I believe, what is it? Is it almost 100 gigs for Flight Simulator or
It's
more?
almost like 700 gigs of data on.
Jeez. So yeah, even if you just want to have one session of that game, you're gonna need one of the newer consoles that has the 1 terabyte drive. So I'd assume that's where they're gonna at least start with. And because it's Microsoft, they'll work their way into at least getting it on xCloud somehow.
And we invite you to check out our piece from our. We like to call him our Xbox expert because he's always writing about Xbox. Our editor Laurent, he put together a nice what to expect at the E3 2021 showcase. So if you want to know more beyond what me and Kareem think will show up at this showcase, which should be in about an hour and a half or so. It starts at 10 a.m. Eastern time with 10 a.m. Pacific time, which is 1 p.m. Eastern time. Check out his piece. He has a lot of hot thoughts. So check it out and let us know what you think. And come back here next week and yell at him and say you were wrong.
Yeah, don't yell at me, even if I'm wrong. Yell at him about me being wrong. With
and
that being said, we also have some hardware to wrap all this up with for next week.
Yeah, I picked up Asus VivoBook Flip 14. This has the AMD Ryzen 5500U inside, and it's one of the newest convertibles that have it inside. And it flips over. It's a two-in-one. It comes with a pen in the box, and it's a little under $500. So I'm gonna review this with the thought of, is it worth getting as a budget PC? And what exactly will $500 get you if you pick up this VivoBook Flip 14? So there's that.
Yeah, and I am finishing up my ThinkPad L13 Yoga review, the ThinkPad E14 Gen 2 as well, with an Intel chip in it. Those should be, if not done by this weekend, beginning of next week, and then I'll be jumping into all my X1 stuff. I have an X1 Carbon ninth generation that I need to review, and an X1 Yoga Gen 6 as well. So between now and the end of next week, there should be about 4 ThinkPads that you guys, if you're interested, if you're a small business buyer, the L13s and E14s. If you are an executive, then the X1 Yoga and the X1 Carbon should be reviewed for you.
And I think that is everything that we had covered. Let us know if we missed anything in the chat, of course. We're always here to listen to you. And I'll let you with the traditional outro, of course.
Yeah, before I start that, I also want to just throw this out there. Our co-host also got his hands on an iPad,
Oh,
so
yeah.
we are in the loop.
Yep.
We'll be probably measuring most of our reviews against stuff like the iPad. Not, they don't have to be a one-to-one comparison, but if you start seeing him write, comparison notes about the iPad, it's because he has one, and
Yep.
it's super important to, measure what Microsoft's doing in the industry against the industry. So
To
I
be
just wanted
clear,
to
it's
note
the
that.
M1 iPad Pro, which is everyone made a big deal about, and then at WWDC, nothing happened, and everyone was so disappointed.
Yeah, those reviews are pretty funny. With that being said, you can reach me at Mindhead1 on Twitter. Again, if you just want to chit chat, if you have tips, you have a joke, whatever, reach me there. You can also reach my co-host at
A back turn.
Yes, and for those of you, again, I always mention this every week. If you are too busy to visit the website itself, check out on Microsoft on Twitter. Again, that's where we keep all of our latest posts, giveaways, commentary, any and everything that we do online can be consolidated there. So check it out.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, everyone, and hope to see you again soon. Same place, same time.
Yeah, and everyone stay safe. I mean, we're still getting towards the tail end of this, but I expect to see more people outside.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye.